Okay, imagine this. You walk into a room, the pressure's on, and you've got one shot. Just 30 minutes to listen to a recording and pull out 40 different pieces of information. And the catch. It only plays once. There's no rewind button. You miss one thing, one tiny detail, and that point is just gone. That's the challenge of the IELTS listening test. Welcome to IELTS Guy Phil's Deep Dive podcast on YouTube. Today what we're doing is we're taking a really close look at a guide from IELTS Guide Phil. He's an experienced teacher who's basically mapped out this entire test section. And our mission here is to pull out the absolute core strategies, to turn that 30-minute sprint from something terrifying into, well, maybe the most scoreable part of the whole exam.
Exactly. It's not just about, practicing your English. It's about test literacy.
Yeah.
This deep dive is about getting inside the heads of the test designers, understanding the structure, the traps they set, and knowing exactly when you need to be paying 100% attention. We're turning listening into a strategy.
Okay, so let's unpack that. If you're getting ready for IELTS, you know this is the very first thing you face on test day. 30 minutes of listening, and then, another 10 minutes to transfer your answers.
Right, if you're doing the paper-based test. And it's the same for everyone, academic or general. But the one rule that never changes is you only hear it once. That's what makes the stakes so high.
It really does. So how do we work with that? The guide talks a lot about the structure.
It does. And that structure is a huge clue. It's built on a rising scale of difficulty, and you can absolutely use that to your advantage.
Okay, walk us through that. What's the journey from Section 1 to Section 4 actually feel like?
So Section 1 is basically your warm-up. It's designed to be the easiest part. It's always a conversation to people in a really normal social setting. Think about like booking a hotel room or maybe calling to report a lost wallet. The answers are usually simple facts, names, numbers, dates. Very straightforward.
Okay, so that's the starting point. Then Section 2 gets a little harder.
A little, yeah. It moves from a conversation to a monologue, so just one person speaking. But it's still a social context, like a tour guide explaining a museum layout or someone giving a welcome speech at a club. This is where you might see things like labeling a map. The speed picks up just a bit.
Right, and the guide really highlights Section 3 as the point where everything changes.
Absolutely. This is where you leave the everyday social stuff behind and you step into an academic world. Section 3 is a conversation, but it's much more complex. 2, sometimes 3, or even 4 people. Usually it's students talking about a project or maybe a student meeting with a tutor. You're not just listening for facts anymore. Now you're tracking opinions, arguments, who agrees with whom. It's a big jump.
And after that big jump, you hit Section 4, which is the final boss, so to speak.
That's a good way to put it. It's the most challenging part, for sure. It's another monologue, but this time it's a full-on academic lecture. One person's speaking about a complex topic. It could be anything from environmental science to ancient history. The vocabulary is dense, and you have to stay focused for a long, long time.
And across all of that, you get hit with all sorts of question types. Multiple choice, matching, filling in notes. But before we get lost in all that detail, let's talk about scoring. 40 questions, 40 marks. What's the most important rule to remember?
The most important rule, without a doubt, is that there is no penalty for a wrong answer. This is huge. Let's say you're aiming for a Band-Aid. That means you need about 35 or 36 correct answers, so you can afford to get a few wrong. And because there's no penalty, you must guess if you don't know. Leaving a blank is just throwing away a point.
That's such a huge psychological relief. You're never punished for trying. Okay, strategy. Before the audio even starts, you get those 30 seconds to look at the questions. How do you make every single one of those seconds count?
Okay, that time is critical. You have to be systematic. First, read the instructions. Check the word limit. Is it no more than 2 words? You have to burn that into your brain. Second, quickly underline the keywords in the questions themselves. This helps you follow along with the audio.
And the third step?
The third step is the most powerful. It's prediction. You look at the gap in the sentence and you predict what kind of information is missing. So if it says, the library opens at time, your brain should immediately be listening for a time. Not a person's name, not a place, a time.
Okay, but I can see someone thinking, if I'm panicking, won't trying to predict answers just slow me down? How does that actually save you time?
It feels counterintuitive, I know,
Right.
but it actually makes you faster. Your brain is primed. It's like you've given it a search command. Instead of trying to process every single word you hear, you're filtering. You're just listening for that one type of information. It's way more efficient.
That makes perfect sense. So your brain is already on the hunt. Now the recording starts playing. The guide talks about signpost words. What are those?
Signpost words are basically the speaker's navigation system. They tell you where the conversation is going. Words like however or but tell you a contrast is coming. A phrase like, the most important thing to remember is.
It's basically a giant flashing sign that says, the answer is coming.
Exactly. Or, to summarize, tells you the main points are about to be repeated. They're cues.
Okay, now for the really juicy part. This is where the test gets clever.
Yeah.
The traps, the distractors.
Oh yeah, this is what separates a good score from a great score. The test is full of them. The most common one is the correction trap. The speaker gives you an answer, a very plausible one, and then immediately takes it back. For example, they'll say, so the meeting is on Tuesday the 10th. Oh wait, sorry, the 10th is a holiday. Let's make it Wednesday the 11th.
And of course, you've already written down Tuesday the 10th.
Right, your instinct is to grab the first piece of information you hear. But the real answer is the correction. You have to listen for words like, actually, sorry, or on second thought.
So you have to listen all the way through the thought. What's another common trap?
The other big one is what we could call a red herring. This happens a lot with multiple choice. The audio will mention all three options, A, B, and C, but the question will ask something very specific, like, what did the tutor recommend? The students might discuss all three, but only one with the tutor's actual recommendation. You have to match the information to the very specific prompt.
Wow. So it's not just about hearing the words, it's about understanding who said them and in what context. Let's switch gears to the things that cost people points that have nothing to do with understanding. Technical errors. First up, word limits.
This one is brutal because it's so simple. If the instructions say no more than 2 words and you write a new car, that's 3 words, 0 marks. Even if new car was the correct information.
So you have to be absolutely ruthless in counting.
Ruthless. Don't add articles like a or the if they push you over the limit, just the core words.
Okay, mistake number 2. I feel like everyone struggles with this. Numbers that sound the same.
The classic teen versus datey. Yes. 13 versus 30. 15 versus 50. It's all about where the stress is. Listen for it. Teen numbers are stressed at the end. TY numbers are stressed at the beginning.
Any quick fix for that in the moment?
Yes. The second you hear a number, write it down as a digit. Write 15, not the word 15. It's faster, and you avoid any confusion later on.
Great tip. That brings us to our third mistake. Spelling and plurals. How strict are they on spelling?
Very strict. A misspelled word is a wrong answer, period. Especially for common words. You're expected to know how to spell the days of the week, months, and words like library or accommodation.
And plurals?
Same deal. If the sentence grammatically needs a plural like, he bought 3 air, and you just write book,
You lose the point.
you lose the point. You have to listen for that little "as" sound at the end of the word. It's subtle, but it's crucial.
Okay, let's talk about accents. The test is global, so you're not just going to hear one type of English.
Not at all. You're going to hear British, American, Australian, and Canadian accents. And if you've only ever practiced with, say, American TV shows, a strong British or Aussie accent can really throw you.
The fix is obviously to listen to a wider range of things, right?
Exactly. Listen to the BBC, listen to news from Canada or Australia. Get your ear tuned to the different rhythms and vowel sounds, like the British can't versus the American can't.
Are there any other specific differences to listen out for beyond just pronunciation?
Well, yeah, vocabulary can sometimes be a factor.
Yeah.
A British speaker might say they live in a flat, whereas an American would say apartment or lift instead of elevator. These words probably won't be the answer itself, but they provide context. And if you're not expecting them, it can cause a moment of confusion.
All right, let's get into the advanced stuff now. For people really pushing for those top scores, like a band 8 or 9, what's the biggest hurdle?
Paraphrasing. Without a doubt. At the higher levels, the test almost never uses the exact same words in the question and in the audio. If the question asks about something being difficult, you're not going to hear the word difficult. You're going to hear challenging, or it was quite tough, or it required a lot of effort.
So let's make that concrete. If a question has the word cheap, what are 3 or 4 other words my brain should be ready to hear?
Great question. You should be listening for affordable, inexpensive, economical, or maybe a phrase like a budget option or low cost. You're listening for the concept of being cheap, not the word itself.
That's a huge shift. You're moving from just matching words to matching ideas. Now, through all of this, you're scribbling notes like crazy, and then you get to the end and you have that 10-minute transfer time. That's not a coffee break.
Not at all. That is your quality control phase. It's absolutely critical. This is your chance to make your messy handwriting legible, to double-check your spelling one last time, to count the words for every single answer, and, most importantly, to make sure every answer gets into the right numbered box on the official answer sheet. Answers left on the question paper get you 0 points.
Let's end on what the guide says is probably the most important thing of all, the mindset. What happens when I miss a question? Because it's going to happen.
It is going to happen, and the natural reaction is to panic.
Right. You start thinking, oh no, what was it? And while you're doing that.
You've just missed the next 2 answers. That's the snowball effect, and it's devastating. The strategy is simple, but it's hard to do. The moment you know you've missed one, you move on, instantly. Draw a circle around the number and force your brain to focus on the next question. You can still get a band 8.5 even if you miss 2 or 3 questions. Don't let one mistake turn into 3.
Stay in the present. That is such a clear lesson. Okay, that was our deep dive into the strategies that really work for the IELTS listening test, all based on the fantastic guide from IELTS Guide Phil.
And remember, it's not just about doing test after test. It's about analyzing your mistakes. Understanding why a distractor fooled you is way more valuable than just getting the right answer next time.
On that note, here's a final thought for you to chew on. The fastest way to improve your listening score might not be in your listening at all. It might be in your analysis of that 10-minute transfer time. Are you losing points because you truly didn't understand, or is it spelling, word count, plurals? Fixing those technical errors is often the quickest path to a higher band score. If you're ready to take the next step in your preparation, here is your roadmap to all the resources we've mentioned. For the full, related original blog post with all the detail on these strategies, head over to IELTSGuidePhil.com. You can find more deep dive episodes on IELTS Guide Phil's YouTube podcast and check out more IELTS video explainers on IELTS Guide Phil's YouTube channel. Additionally, you can find resources and support in the IELTS Guide Phil's Facebook community. All the necessary links are provided in the YouTube description below. And finally, if you're ready to personalize your preparation and tackle those difficult writing and speaking sections, comment below to avail of IELTS Guide Phil's online writing and speaking coaching service. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.